27,000 investigations and over 4,000 captured Taliban personnel, it has been proven that the ISI has been aware of all of Taliban's operations and have simply been keeping this information from the United States. Not only this, but they've directly financially aided both the Haqqani network and the Taliban. But let's look at some other specific instances. The ISI is also connected directly to the Lakshar, which is an anti-Indian terrorist organization as well. It has aided in 2 bomb-making facilities in Islamabad. It has aided terrorists in the FATA region, and it has aided in the Indian bombing embassy in 2008. But we need to realize that with all this money going to terrorist organizations, that the rest of the money isn't going to the people where it's actually supposed to go. So the humanitarian aid that we're giving to Pakistan is largely ineffective. And this explains why the education and health sector within Pakistan is largely non-existent. So according to the Government Accountability Office, we gave Pakistan at one point $1.5 billion, but out of that, only $179.5 million were actually used to help the masses. In 2008, there was a $750 million project that was supposed to be conducted, but only 53% of that project was actually completed. There was another project where there were supposed to be 115 schools built, but to this day, 0 schools have actually been completely built. In 2009, the United States aided the FATA region and the Pakistani troops in the FATA region. Yet, to this day, the Pakistani troops in that region are largely lax in simple equipment, such as ammunition. So obviously, this aid isn't going to where it's supposed to go. And let's look at why. And that's because Pakistan has many different objectives that are different from the United States. The Center for Strategic and International Studies pointed out that India focuses on India as a threat and only sees the United States as a temporary actor in the Middle Eastern region and sees that the United States is going to pull out by 2014. So what they do is they maneuver independently within the Middle East because they want to ensure that they will have a sphere of dominance or a sphere of influence in a post-American era in the Middle East. So this explains why the military is largely uncooperative.
Thank you, authors. Just a brief note before we begin questioning. I will do gavel taps as well as the lights in case they're hard to see. So 1 gavel tap at 30 seconds, 2 at 15 seconds. With that, the floor is open for technical and non-debatable questions. The chair recognizes McCluskey, McDonald, the delegate from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Deutsch, and Cook.
Thank you, McDonald, Arizona. On what other occasions has the United States cut off aid to Pakistan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jared McCluskey, Republic of Texas. So once this aid is cut, where would the funds go?
Well, we can use it for whatever we please. I mean, we're not using the money to go there, so I mean, it's whatever we want to do with it.
Thank you.
Dylan Devine, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Chair. Does this concern any humanitarian aid or simply direct aid to the government of Pakistan?
No, only about 10% of this monetary aid goes to humanitarian aid.
But it does affect, all aid is going to be cut, including humanitarian aid.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Andrew Edwards, Commonwealth of Virginia. Are there currently troops on the border between Pakistan and India?
No.
William Brown, Wisconsin delegation. Thank you, Chair. In your opening statement, you said that only about 10% of the money goes for humanitarian aid. How much is the U.S. intending to go to humanitarian aid?
100% of the money we allocated towards humanitarian aid should go to humanitarian aid.
Thank you, Arthur.
Molly Cook, Commonwealth of Virginia. For how long has the U.S. given humanitarian aid to Pakistan?
After 2002, which is after 9/11.
Thank you, Sir Chair. I'm Kathy based in New York. May you please specify how many Middle Eastern states feature anti-Western sentiments?
I mean, the Middle Eastern region as a whole, like collectively, has a lot of anti-American sentiment. I don't have the exact number in my head.
Chairman Bush, Louisiana delegation. Authors, can you please cite where your facts about Pakistan funding terrorists come from?
There are several sources I can look to: Foreign Policy, Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs.
Maria Schwartz, New Jersey delegation. Thank you, Sir Chair. Why are we still funding Pakistan if it's known that most of the funds are not
That's a debatable question.
Sorry.
Further question on the floor. The chair recognizes Forty, Hegedus, Howell, Keene, Vadi, Edmondson, Mott, Render.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Keenan Rodi from the Delaware delegation. What percentage of Pakistani people are terrorists or part of the government?
I'm sorry, Elliot, that is unknowable.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Tim Hegedus, Delaware delegation. What other Middle Eastern countries do we give?
Excuse me.
What other Middle Eastern countries do we give aid to?
We give aid to Afghanistan, Iran.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Keenan. I am from Florida. Does the U.S. currently have a presence in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Will Halstead, Georgia, thank you, Sir Chair. Can you give a precise number of how many terrorist groups receive this money or get their hands on this money?
Well, I named 3 specifically, but there are other smaller organizations.
Body from the state of Mississippi. Do you know how long Pakistan housed Osama bin Laden?
We don't know the exact number.
Evans from the United Nations. Thank you, Sir Chair. Could you explain why, if we knew Pakistan was housing terrorists, we began...
Delegate, that's a debatable question.
Senator North Carolina, would the proposal include provisions to restore aid to Pakistan if they stop funding terrorism?
Yes.
Thank you.
James Mott from Maryland, thank you, Sir Chair. What percent of Pakistani GDP is from USA?
Well, we're not funding the Pakistani GDP.
Thank you, Are there further questions on the floor? Chair recognizes Topper, Fuller, and Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Topper from Colorado. What is the anticipated timeline for this proposal?
Well, there isn't an exact timeline. The proposal for action states that as soon as the ISI is willing to cooperate with the United States terms and stops funding terrorist aid will be...
Thank you, Thank you.
David Fullerton, Republic of Texas. Does the humanitarian aid that the United States government gives to Pakistan ever fall into the hands of the Pakistani government?
It almost always does.
Thank you, Time for technical non-debatable questions has elapsed. Time for debate is now in order, or rather, time for con-intent speech is in order. Is a con-intent speaker of the Assembly? The con-intent speaker. One more time, the con-intent speaker. Are you the intent speaker or are you from the floor?
I believe I am the intent speaker. I was out of the room when it was called and told me out. Thank you, Sir Chair. My name is Alec Polanski, and I am from Florida. As the author said that the amount of money that goes to the humanitarian aid is low, I researched it, and it was about 5%. Do you all know what 5% of 20 billion is? Well, that is a lot. This is money that the Pakistani people will not be getting to, build schools. All of that important things that will help bring this country up. If we cut the funding, what will their opinion of us be now? I know it isn't too high of us right now, but it can only get worse. And right now, I know that there might be accusations that they are funding terrorist organizations. But if we put a stipulation on the money right now instead of cutting it altogether, we can ensure that the humanitarian aid doesn't get cut. We can't punish the people who are doing good because of the government's misuse of the funds. If we pull the humanitarian fund right now without any sorts of any other help, this will only hurt the Pakistani people, which is not what I believe is right. If we continue using this money for humanitarian research or humanitarian aid while pulling the rest of the money that they get for security, or it's labeled security, but that money apparently goes to the terrorist organizations. So I don't believe that all funding should be pulled from them. I believe that only the part that goes to their security and goes to their government for the security should be pulled. Why does it make any sense that the humanitarian part of their funding gets pulled while the security part is too? I yield the remainder of my time to the Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. You've yielded a minute and 15 seconds. With that, we are now in line for the pro-intent speaker. Is that Delegate before the Chair recognizes Delegate Desai?
Thank you, Chair.
You are recognized for 2 minutes.
Ashika Desai, South Carolina. I stand in firm affirmation of this proposal for a few reasons. One, huge costs are being wasted. During the 1990s, the World Bank and several other donor partners provided millions of dollars of outside aid to support anti-poverty programs in Pakistan. Even so, poverty was higher in Pakistan in 2004 than it was when the program began a decade earlier. The GAO finds that only 10% of U.S. assistance to Pakistan has gone to development, while the majority has gone to administrative costs. Of the military aid that the U.S. gave Pakistan between 2002 and 2008, only 7.5% of it made it to the military. Furthermore, 70% of these funds were spent illegitimately. The fact is that once the money is in Pakistani hands, the U.S. has no say in how it is spent. Therefore, Pakistan can actually use these funds to support terrorism, which is the issue on the forefront of U.S. foreign policy. This proposal resolves this issue by overseeing the ISI, which is the agency in which the funds are allocated and dispensed. 2. Pakistan supports insurgents and terrorist organizations who attack U.S. troops. Leaked documents show that Pakistan allows representatives of the ISI, which is our CIA equivalent, to meet with the Taliban to organize militant groups that fight against our troops. More alarming is that the Haqqani, an al-Qaeda ally, acts as an arm of the ISI, which is the same agency that is receiving and dispensing U.S. aid. The ISI has additionally been tied to the bombing of the U.S. Embassy and airstrike on the NATO base. 3 is India. Pakistan isn't using the money for counterterrorism, but to fight India. And if they continue to do this, there are 2 huge impacts. 1, our relationship with India could be severely hurt, and 2, we could potentially help fuel an arms race between the rival nuclear powers. Neither scenario is in the national interest of the U.S., and so therefore we must think of what is in the best interest of the U.S., and we must suspend all aid until Pakistan is able to meet the terms and of this proposal and compromise. Thank you.
With that, the floor is now open for time for debate. The chair would like to recognize the first con speaker. The chair recognizes the delegate from Tennessee.
Justin Moffett, State of Tennessee. Ever since the assassination of Osama bin Laden, tensions between the U.S. and Pakistan have been at an all-time high. This proposal would be inappropriately timed and diplomatically reckless. I see major issues with this proposal, starting with line 31, referring to Pakistan's hesitance in permitting the U.S. from pursuing known terrorist organizations within Pakistani borders. Although we would like to ferret out these extremists, we cannot infringe on Pakistan's state sovereignty. To dismantle a foreign agency completely violates state sovereignty, especially an intelligence agency. Through the nature of its work, this agency holds state secrets and top secret documents. This would be an invasion of their national security, a card that the U.S. government tends to pull often. In fact, this would be considered sanctioned espionage. To mandate that an agency be rebuilt under the Department of Defense guidelines only advances the imperialistic image of America. Have we not learned to stay out of the business of foreign governments? If the Pakistani people already distrust the U.S., how will this come across to the average Pakistani? This has the potential to push more youth to radicalism. I'm not worried about the Pakistani government as much as I am the 17-year-old boy that only needs one more reason to pick up a gun against the United States. Besides the issue of sovereignty, pulling out our humanitarian aid will only harm innocent citizens who are removed from the terror conflict. This proposal even states that 3.1 out of $5.3 billion was humanitarian. The last thing we need is for Pakistan and its citizens to go against the United States. If we want to see change in Pakistan, we must go through the proper channels of diplomacy, reduce economic support, decrease military support, UN Security Council resolutions, but risking the lives of innocent Pakistani civilians, men and women in uniform, and American citizens is not an option.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair now seeks to recognize the first pro speaker from the floor. The chair recognizes the gentleman who's received his placard. Thank you. The chair would like to recognize Delegate Trotter.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Trotter, Oklahoma. Today I'm going to start out by going over what one of the incumbent speakers went over, and then I would like to continue by affirming some of the points previous delegates have made. One of the points is that there is humanitarian aid in Pakistan, and that is going to schools and other important things, etc., something like that. The vast majority, over 90%, is not reaching that, yet the majority of United States aid is supposed to be going towards that. And a lot of this humanitarian aid aids Pakistani farmers, and interestingly enough, Pakistan is the #1 producer of opium in the entire world. This opium trade is then being purchased by Afghanistani terrorists who then manufacture the opium into heroin and then sell it to our own people and Asian nations alike. I will now go on to talk about the United States is close economic allies with India. We are not close economic allies with Pakistan. Enough said, we should support our economic allies, especially in a circumstance like we're currently facing. What I think is the most important, the United States does not negotiate with terrorists. If you are aiding terrorist organizations, you are a terrorist. After that, the Pakistani army, there was a Pakistani army major who informed the United States government that Osama bin Laden was hiding in the military compound where he was hiding. That military official, that major in the Pakistani army, has been arrested by the Pakistani government and has yet to be set free, even though the United States government has said, you will free our ally. Lastly, I think the biggest kick in the face, 5% of the Pakistani people view the United States as an ally. Okay, let's see. $20+ billion in the past year, and you don't even appreciate it? Well, who are we allies with? I yield the remainder of my time to Delegate Ramakishan.
You did not reserve that right. With that said, floor is now open for another con-speech. Thank you, delegates. Another con-speech. The chair recognizes the delegate from Connecticut.
Andrew Jones, Connecticut. Thank you, Sir Chair. I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate from New Jersey.
So reserved.
There's a small town in rural Pakistan called Corby. I don't know if any of you remember the floods 2 years ago that devastated rural Pakistan. Some of the funding that we provide to Pakistan went to rebuilding the bridge. That was the only way that these people could get any resource in and out of their town. Also, $178 million that went unaccounted for in the U.S. budget was going to an institute called the Central Asia Institute. It's for furthering education in rural parts of the Middle East. So with that, I yield my time to the delegate from New Jersey.
You yielded in 15 seconds.
Sebastian Coffey, New Jersey delegation. Thank you, Sir Chair and fellow delegate. I see a couple of problems with this proposal, and I'll just go over them. The first one is this is a complete overstepping of the authority that the U.S. has. The first part of the proposal is that we are going to be dismantling and completely controlling the Inter-Services Intelligence Agency. So we are completely overstepping our boundaries and taking control of something that shouldn't be, and there's no way justified for the U.S. to do. Then we need to maintain this aid because it appeases them and maintains our drone strike bases with target killing operations that can effectively save lives. Yesterday, a previous delegate who passed a proposal about targeted killing actually shows that target killing drone strike bases that are stationed in Pakistan kill 10 out of 20 top Al-Qaeda officials. If you're saying that using maintaining aid and maintaining these drone bases in Pakistan does not counter terrorism, then I have no idea how you're seeing statistics and how you're evaluating them. Second, if you're taking away money, you're vindicating a militarized economy to induce backlash on American soil. At least the proxy war is maintained within the region, and even with that, with our targeted killing drone bases, we can kill the terrorists that are in the region. So not only are we maintaining terrorism to stay away from American soil, we are also countering terrorism within the region. For these reasons, I urge objection to the proposal. Thank you.
With that, is there a final procedure on the floor? The chair recognizes the delegate from Colorado.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Talk about Colorado. I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate from
Just the delegate.
Chair, do I have that right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sir Chair. As we've been talking about this debate, what the debate really comes down to is whether or not the ISI is a legitimate government entity of Pakistan, and whether or not it acts in the best interest of the American and global people. What we have to see is that the ISI, which is the Pakistani equivalent of the CIA, is an unbelievable threat not just to the United States, not just to India, but to really the entire world, because it funds and directly helps out very, very powerful and dangerous terrorist organizations like Lashkar-e Taiba. This is one that has not been brought up yet. Lashkar-e Taiba is an anti-Indian terrorist group. You know how much Al-Qaeda hates the United States? That's how much Lashkar-e Taiba hates India. That's how far they're willing to go to destroy and kill as many Indians as possible. Now, for those of you that are aware of the Indian 9/11s that happened in 2008, when Lashkar-e Taiba terrorists basically went to Mumbai and took over the Hotel Taj, which is a 5-star restaurant there, and killed hundreds and hundreds of people, that was directly funded by the ISI. It wasn't even covered up. There are public financial receipts that showed that the boat that took those terrorists directly to Mumbai from Pakistan was funded by the ISI. They literally bought the ticket for these people to go and kill Indians on Indian soil. You're telling me that these guys aren't terrorists? They funded the terrorists directly. It's in the public records. Of course they're terrorists. Finally, we have to look back at Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden, of course, was harbored within Pakistan for gosh knows how many years. And obviously, when you look at it, I mean, he was there for so long, and essentially what happened is that, this has been brought up before, but he was harbored there by the ISI, and essentially kept there for so long, and that is not acceptable. Someone has talked about tensions, about how we're escalating tensions. You know who escalated tensions first? Pakistan, when they harbored the world's top wanted man within their boundaries for so many years. Pakistan and the ISI are the ones who are increasing tensions, not us by passing this proposal. Please pass the proposal.
With that, is there a final con speaker on this proposal? The chair recognizes the delegate from California. Delegate, your time has started.
Thank you, Sir Chair. My name is Sam Lightyear from the California delegation, and I reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to the delegate from Delaware. Thank you. Okay. Now, we've heard so many convincing arguments, but I want to ask you, why hasn't our government stopped this aid? They're fully aware of this. If people in this room are aware of this, our government is aware of this. And the reason is because they are an ally. After everybody here got out of third committee yesterday, Hillary Clinton announced that Pakistan was opening up more trade routes for NATO and for the U.S. military. I agree that we shouldn't keep funding terrorists, but the fact of the matter is we cannot give up on Pakistan because they are an important ally and the only place we can safely put our troops and our military bases in the Middle East. And with that, I yield my time to the delegate from Delaware.
You yielded a minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Tim Hegedus, Delaware delegation. Will the author please yield to a possible series of questions?
Will the author yield?
You said we give aid to Afghanistan and Iran as well. Have we found terrorists in Afghanistan and Iran? Yes. Do the people of Afghanistan and Iran have a favorable opinion of the United States? No. You said that some of the projects aren't completed or they don't get all of our money. Are all of our projects finished in all of the countries we aid?
No, but that's really...
even if some projects aren't finished, do we cut off all aid?
No, but again, that's...
How much of the total humanitarian aid going to Pakistan total is from the United States?
5%.
So why don't we just cut the aid to the military for counterterrorism efforts instead of both military and humanitarian aid? Because in your justification you said that there are both kinds of aid.
There are other options. The United States is not the only humanitarian aid. There are other nonprofit organizations I can...
But you're still cutting the humanitarian aid when you said the major reason that we're cutting the aid to them is because they harbor terrorists.
Right,
so why don't we just cut the counterterrorism part?
Because the humanitarian aid that we're giving them isn't going to the people, which is what humanitarian...
Does that happen in all the countries that we give aid to?
Yes, that's relevant. This bill is about Pakistan.
With that, time for Concord debate has elapsed. The author is recognized for a 2-minute summation statement.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Valdez, Oklahoma. I'd like to touch on the Osama bin Laden topic. Okay, you're going to tell me that Pakistan is our ally when we found Osama bin Laden 3 miles from the military base while we were aiding them. I'd like to go off what a previous delegate said about how they might fund terrorism. If they might fund, even the word might, if we're not going to stand for any type of terrorism, then that is exactly why this proposal should pass. They should punish the people. Only 5% of that is going to the humanitarian aid. Also, a previous delegate was concerning about a flood that happened. Well, although the money that we aided them might have gone to that, well, over 20 countries actually aided them in that flood. So we weren't the main aid in the flood.
Thank you. So there are points brought up that we can't infringe in Pakistan or in the sovereignty or invade their ISI, and I completely agree with that. But we can't stand to let Pakistan use our money to fund terrorists that kill our troops. So if they want to continue aiding terrorists, then fine, but we're not going to continue aiding them, and they're not going to continue using U.S. money to fund these terrorists. So yeah, we don't have to step into Pakistan anymore. That's completely up to them, and it's in their hands with this proposal. So someone else said that we're stepping over our boundaries, but when we aid a country, we expect that money to go where we say. And if they don't cooperate, we're not obligated to fund them any longer. So if they want U.S. aid, then they will comply to U.S. terms. That's not overstepping boundaries, that's common sense. And lastly, we need to realize that maintaining drone bases and supply routes will be allowed in Pakistan, not through this proposal, but because this proposal is actually going to work. Several sources have pointed out that Pakistan is largely dependent on U.S. aid, and without it, it would falter. So, for example, Saudi Arabian aid, North Korean aid, China...
Thank you, author. With that, it is the motion before this committee is that proposal 270 does now pass. All those in favor, please stand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, please reverse your positions. Nay. It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes do have it.